right. Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon to learn more about Kids on Point, to learn and just to celebrate all of the innovation that is happening in public education across South Carolina. I'm Amy Keeley, and I work at the Riley Institute here at Furman, and I direct the SCALE Fellowship, South Carolina After School Leaders Empowered. And on stage with me this afternoon from Kids on Point, we have Lauren Herderick, who is the Executive Director. We have Stacia Smith, Director of Operations, and Dylan Woodward, who is the Program Director. So thank you for being here. During this conversation, we're really going to learn about what Kids on Point does, how they serve their community, why they serve their community, and hopefully some takeaways for all of you here in the audience. And really want to just celebrate the work of after school and summer learning that you're so invested in, and how this work supports kids regardless of zip code, that they have opportunities, that they are able to be successful in school and beyond. So we're going to really start this conversation at the beginning of Kids on Point. And you all were founded in 2009 with the mission to close the opportunity gap for underserved youth in Charleston. And in this room, I know that you know that oftentimes opportunity is what's lacking, not ability. And I just really love that you all provide opportunities for young people so that they can be successful. So Lauren, how about you tell us a little bit about the specific needs that really preceded the founding of Kids on Point, and a little bit about your origin story.
Absolutely. So we were very fortunate to have an amazing founder. He was a part of the Liberty Fellowship program, had kids that were in the public school system, and noticed the need for a positive after-school program, combining academics, athletics, and the community in what he was designing, and also believed in the power of collaboration, and so that's where the College of Charleston really came in. But with that was a game of squash, in which you saw in the video, and actually when I came in, I was like, gosh, I have know nothing about squash. It's a vegetable. I'm from Georgia, so I knew nothing of the sport, but it really is an incredible hook for kids. And so what we do, we start with kids, we bus them into the College of Charleston, who's one of our primary partners, and they're participating in academics, athletics, and then they also give back to the community. And through that is how we embed access and exposure into our program. They're working with about 100 undergraduate mentors every day, and it really has created a beautiful platform for them to explore their interests and for us to build out the program.
Wow, that's really exciting. Yeah, who in here played squash when you were in elementary school? I venture to say probably almost no one. Yeah. Well, Kids on Point certainly isn't alone in being an after-school provider in South Carolina. There's a recent estimate from the After School Alliance that in South Carolina alone, there's almost 79,000 students who are being served in after-school programs. So we know that there are lots of organizations that are providing after-school and summer learning opportunities across our state, but you all really use some unique strategies, and they're really maximizing impact. So Dylan, how about, could you tell us some of those key components to your programming, and what sets it apart from other after-school programs?
Yeah, definitely. So we, at Kids on Point, we believe in the 3 C's, so that's classroom, courts, and community. And then for our parents, that's that 4th C. So students engage in squash, as Lauren mentioned. We have that academic success through tutoring and daily engagement with our mentors. And then we also have the community piece where we do, this year, for example, we did a Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy community service and donated a bunch of books to students. So really getting them to give back to their community as well. And then we have enrichment opportunities. That could be art, that could be public speaking, that could be debate club, things that kind of tie into soft skills or student interest. So we understand that not every student is going to be a great squash player, or will strive to do that, but there's something that makes every student spark. We also take feedback from our families every year and students, so we get end of the year surveys to both parents and students, because we want to hear from them, like, what do you guys want to do? So if we brought this partner in for a week, like, hey, Mr. Dillon, can we bring him in for 6 weeks? Or can we try this in the summer? So we really try to have these kitchen table talks, we call them, with parents, to see what it is that you like, what's working for you all, are there any barriers that we can help alleviate, given our second location, that came from a conversation with parents. Like, hey, a lot of our parents are moving to North Charleston, and data showed us that our parents were moving. So we said, hey, we need to open a second site to make sure we keep serving them. Yeah.
That's great that you're really incorporating the voices and the needs of your parents and your students as well. So you're really integrating the arts and academics and athletics in particular, a lot of goal setting and future planning. So it seems that you're not just doing one thing with your young people. So can you share a little bit more about how that is really the secret sauce, this magic component of integrating lots of different pieces?
Well, because if you try enough things, something's going to stick with the student. So if they say that, oh, it's nothing they do at Kids on Point, it's like, well, they're either not showing up or they're just, anyway. We offer a lot of options to students, so they are bound to take to one thing at least. So whether that's a club that we're offering every Tuesday, it's like, well, I don't like squash on Monday. It's like, well, we have, chess club on Tuesday. So really just giving them a lot of options and exposing them to a lot of different things and letting them figure out as well, what do I like? What makes me, click?
Consistency is also a big piece. So we start with kids in elementary school. We follow them through middle, high school, and post-secondary. So at minimum, it's a 15-year commitment per child. And so being able to develop that relationship with the student to watch them grow. So elementary, it could look very much like effort and participation and developing that academic foundation. And then middle school, exploration. As they get into high school, that college and career prep. And through that, all the various opportunities and access that we build in, hopefully that light bulb will come off, and then they'll be able to design that path.
Great, and it's really special that you work with students for such a long period of time, too. With all of these years that you're working with kids, with all these different components, I think in the video you mentioned that you have 60 different partners. All of those components require a lot of expertise, and so partnerships have to come into play, right? You can't be the expert in every single thing. Nobody's successful on their own. So from funding to program development to your evaluation, you definitely, Kids on Point is definitely a testament to the power of collaboration and the power of partnership. So Lauren, can you talk some about some of those partnerships, how they've helped Kids on Point to become what it is, and how they continue to grow?
You saw Fran Welch on the video. She's the Dean of Education at the College of Charleston, and she was really kind of that primary driver. Our founder, Todd Abaddon, went to her and said, wouldn't this be a beautiful relationship to bring kids from the community on a college campus and make that a reality, whether that was a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, or a certification, that something after high school was very achievable. And she signed on immediately, also having not a clue what squash is or was, and she'll tell that story. But she really welcomed us with open arms, along with the professors and the college mentors. And so having that near-to-peer relationship of college students coming and giving back, also the professors that helped us really design from the beginning our outcomes and impacts, it really helped us establish a strong foundation to be able to, where we are at this point, looking at a lot more growth. But also, as we mentioned on the video, there's a lot of barriers to entry, transportation being one of those many barriers. So we sought out partners, and it started with church groups helping us bus students to and from. We've gotten a little bit bigger for our church groups, so that's expanded to a new partner. Nutrition components, the Low Country Food Bank provides our meals and snacks every evening. And then all the other critical partners that we found that people love working with kids. It's just handling the logistics of kids and families that they might not want to dive into. So we've been able to have conversations with groups like Parks and Rec. You can come use our pools. Lifeguards, swim instructors, they're providing all of that. And it's really it put us in a position to be able to expand these services for students in an in-kind way where we can punch above our weight.
That's great. That's really great. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you've talked about the data specialist that you have on your team as one of the partners that you have. You mentioned even the College of Charleston helping with some of your data collection. Can you share about that?
Yeah, so there was her name is Rachel James. She was previously our Director of Operations. She did a lot of data for Wings for Kids in the beginning, and then came on as our director of operations, and she's just a guru in this space. And so she unfortunately did move to Atlanta, but is working with us in a part-time capacity and helps us dive in and go, this is working, this is not working, here are some of the gaps that I'm seeing. And then, as Dylan mentioned, the kitchen table conversations with parents and students, were really able to kind of pinpoint what those gaps are, what we need to address, and these are constant staff conversations of what do we need to do differently. Adaptability and pivoting, it should be in our name, because that's what we do on a regular basis.
Yeah, I remember in our planning conversations, you talked about that the pivot is necessary. It's not something to be afraid of, that
No.
when things aren't working, then change it, and don't be scared to do that, and to find a partner and a collaborator to help you do that, and that these data specialists are in the classrooms with you, training your staff to observe and assess what's being successful and what maybe needs a little bit of tweaking.
Yep.
So really appreciate that. Sometimes it can be a little bit scary to, or not scary, I'm sorry, it's tempting, that scary is a later question. Sometimes it can be a little tempting to say yes to every partner that comes your way. Particularly, I think, for our friends who maybe live in some rural areas where opportunity is not as abundant. Also, if you're a newer organization, you all didn't start on day one in 2009 with 60 partners and 100 mentors coming in every day, I'm sure. So when you're new, when you live somewhere that doesn't have a lot of opportunity, it can be tempting to say yes to anybody who comes along. But I know that you all are really careful to make sure that your partners believe in the vision, that they support the work that you're doing in Kids on Point. So Stacia, how do you make sure that your partners are aligned with Kids on Point? Do you have any tools that you use? What kind of conversations do you have?
Most definitely. So we look for partners who have similar visions and values that we have as an organization, so that we're able to work toward a common goal and really have something that we're both looking to accomplish from our partnership. And so having those conversations about, what does this work mean to you? What do you hope to accomplish? And what does success look like? And then making sure that that stays in the forefront so you can work towards it. And so we have a variety of enrichment partners that we utilize throughout the school year, both in the after school and summer space. And we like partners who have hands-on learning experiences, that specialize in STEM, and are able to really make learning an experience for our students, because we don't want our program to feel like a continuation of the school day or remediation program or any of those things. And as you heard on the video, we don't really encourage worksheets. We're not a worksheets kind of environment. So we're always looking for opportunities for students to be up, moving, out, exploring, and really learning in a way that appeals to them. Because although we really want them to be academically prepared, physically prepared for all the things for life after high school, we are in the memory-making business. And so we really want the memories that they make at Kids on Point to stick with them through a lifetime, so that they're able to reflect back on that and really realize the life skills that they gained with their time with us, which is that 15-year investment. Additionally, we do use an out-of-school time instrument to assess our partners, because again, we want to make sure that we have a high quality that we're providing to our students, because our students can only be as great as we are giving them the opportunity to be. And so with that instrument, with that tool, we're able to assess from a curriculum standpoint, a planning standpoint, behavior management standpoint. That is very important when we're working with students, how effective each partner is, what conversations we can have, and how we can better support. And so we really look to provide that wraparound service for our partners, making sure that they have the materials, supplies that they need to run sessions, as well as being in the space with them, especially for new partners. We typically pair them with a staffer, so that that staffer is there to support, because when you're in front of the room of 25 students, you're definitely outnumbered. And so we like to provide that support both in the planning, preparation, as well as in the implementation part, all the way up to evaluation and then reflection.
Wow, I think that's really amazing, because again, we're talking about letting the experts be the experts in the things that they're really good at, and an expert in a specific topic, gardening, squash, whatever it may be, they may not be an expert in translating that to academic needs. They may not be an expert in behavior management. So really having those conversations, doing that assessing up front, pairing them with an educator who knows the kids, who knows how to work that room, probably makes it a lot more successful. You also talked about the vision and values needing to align, and I would imagine that you have to really be clear on what your own vision and values are before you can bring someone else into that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process of just ensuring that vision alignment?
Oh, definitely. So opportunities like this, where we're able to connect with people in the broader field, as well as just working in the similar space in schools, you come across people who are doing the same work. And so having those conversations like, hey, this is what we're doing. I heard about you. Where can we partner? In fact, we had a conversation like that at the beginning of this with some friends at this table over here that we're definitely going to follow up on. So making sure that when you're having these conversations, that you hear the passion in the voices of those you're speaking to, because we are all working toward the same goal. We love our students. We want to make sure that they have better opportunities to succeed, that we're giving them opportunities for access, and that we're really supporting them in the long run. So making sure that you're surrounded by like-minded people and have those conversations transparently. And if you're not able to partner right away, thinking about how you can do it perhaps in the future, what needs to be in place in order to do that, because nothing happens overnight. And being able to say, yes, we can, or maybe we should wait a little while longer is also helpful as well.
Right, and that's a really key piece to keep in mind too, that maybe the time isn't right this minute, but let's keep this in mind. Let's do it when the time is right. And again, that pivot. If something isn't working, don't be afraid to change course, to stop course. And I think, again, going back to folks who are really looking for some suggestions on partnering, that's a key piece as well. Maybe now's not the time. Maybe now is the time. Maybe we need to call it quits. But being able to assess, I think, really helps you with that, it sounds like, and having those processes defined. So while we're talking about partnerships, I have to mention that this is not the first meeting of Kids on Point and the Riley Institute. You have been a finalist for the WhatWorksSC Award previously. And Stacia, you were a member of the inaugural cohort of the Scale Fellowship, the South Carolina After School Leaders Empowered. So really, I'm thrilled to have you here on the stage and to be able to brag about the work of this organization. So Stacia, can you talk a little bit about how the Scale Fellowship really helped to refine your work as an after-school professional and also to refine the work of Kids on Point?
Definitely. So participating in Scale was a great experience. It was an 11-month professional development, and I came into Kids on Point from the classroom. So I had taught in the classroom for a number of years, realized I wanted to do more, and then I landed at Kids on Point working initially in the academic program. And then when I came across Scale, my eyes were open to how vast and broad the out-of-school time space was. And it was so great to be around other professionals working both in the state and out of state to make sure that students are learning outside of the school day. And so when I was participating in Scale, one of our tasks was to take what we were learning both from each other and through our field trip experiences to build a project that was not supposed to be homework or a separate thing from our work schedule, but aligned to what we were doing at our respective sites. And so the project could focus on capacity building, sustainability, or quality, or a mixture of all three, which is the direction I went in because I started to assess our hiring practices. Because at the time, we were coming out of the pandemic, things were looking a little funky from a staffing perspective. And so it's like we had to take who we could because we had so many students, not enough staff. How do we fit these gap areas? And so one of my projects was to assess our recruitment structure for talent, as well as how we train them and how we make sure that we support them in their time with us. And I decided to focus specifically on summer because that's where our team expands in great numbers. And so with that project, I was able to really devote some time and get feedback from you as well as from my fellows regarding how to improve it. And with that project, these 5 years later, we now have a really high quality in the applicants that we receive for our lead teacher and program counselor positions that we did not have previously. And so now we have the opportunity to be very selective in who we hire and making sure that they're bringing some real talent, capability, creativity, passion to the table, because if they're passionate about students and have a genuine love for students, then what we ask them to do regarding project-based learning or anything in the classroom environment becomes all that much easier. And so by participating in Scale, I was able to develop that skill set on what it means to plan for a program to be successful, starting with the leaders of the program. And then if the leaders of the program are passionate and invested, then the students in turn become passionate and excited about coming to Kids on Point. And they tell their cousins and their friends and their family, and everyone is now a member of the Kids on Point family, and it's just such a great experience. So that was a great milestone in my evolution as an after-school professional that I was very grateful for.
Great.
I have to brag on her too, because we almost have 90% retention of our summer staff.
That's impressive.
Since her project.
Yeah. That's impressive. Yeah, thank you. And again, being patient, right? It takes some time. It takes some evaluation. It takes really understanding what your mission is, what your values are, what your end game is. And now you have this tremendous return rate on your staff, which is really phenomenal. So everybody loves a story, loves a good story, a feel-good story, right? We've heard some anecdotes, we've heard some examples of the work that you all do, but you've also done a lot of work surrounding actual data collection and measurement of what is happening in your programs with your staff, with your partners, with your students. You're not just tracking the number of students you serve or the type of activities that you provide, but you're really measuring the outcomes of the work that you're doing. So Dylan, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the highlights that you have seen from Kids on Point with your students, the outcomes? Why do these numbers matter so much?
Yeah, so the numbers matter, one, because if the students aren't there, you can't serve them, right?
Right.
So one big number that we are always looking at are attendance rates, average daily attendance, et cetera. From those numbers, for example, last year, we look at those numbers and realize, like, man, our high schoolers and middle schoolers are getting busier. They're wanting to try other sports, other after-school activities. So we changed our model a bit to, for them to be able to still take part in what we offer, but just on a reduced dosage. But that way we still get those touch points with them. They're still able to benefit from our services. But that's one reason. And then we look at attendance because it is a great indicator of retention long-term as well. So as we've all mentioned, we're in for the long haul with students. From the time they start, we explain to parents we want them to be with us through high school and post-secondary. They have to show up to see those effects. So we can look at the numbers, and if I say, hey, we've done so much academic, career readiness, et cetera, but this student has only been here 30% of the time, they're not getting that dosage. So there's gaps there. So to answer your question, that's why the data is super important.
Okay, fantastic. You shared a little bit already about this, but the barriers of entry. Can you talk a little bit more about that, about how you overcome these barriers to entry to make sure that your students are coming so that they can reap the benefits and see the positive outcomes?
Yeah, so we get creative. So like I think we've talked about transportation before. We've got one little larger and one small but mighty van, and we'll separate and pick up students who maybe aren't typically on our route, but they've been with us for years, and they just happen to switch schools, or they're very invested in coming. And it might be one student from that school. If we can make it work and go pick them up, we will. If parents are saying that it's issues with maybe they're going through a time where maybe money or funds isn't where it needs to be, and they feel comfortable discussing that with us, we make sure to ask the local country food bank if we can send some extra item home. We have even carpooled students ourselves. Like staff have grouped up together and like, hey, we'll just take these students off. We've extended programming in the evening this year to include an additional hour because some families were saying, hey, I'm not getting off until later in the evening. So, Coach Grimm and Coach Brendan, they were like, well, they can come and play a little more squash if that's, as long as you still pick up at 7. If you can work with us there, we'll work with you. So that's an example.
That's
Those
great.
are some examples.
That's great. You're really responsive to the needs of your students and your families because you want them to be there, because you want them to receive the content and to be successful. You keep mentioning this long-term investment in students, 15 years potentially, and I really think that sets you all apart from a lot of other organizations, and also that you are tailoring your services differently based on what age group your students are in, whether they're in elementary school or middle school or high school, they're receiving vastly different services. There was a recent 26-year longitudinal study that's come out that has really, really positive impacts for after-school programming. and how it affects students all throughout their academic careers into adulthood. And the students who had the greatest success are those who were in after school longer throughout their different phases of education. So Stacia, would love to hear again from you about how you start with the end in mind. You all are very intentional about your planning. So how do you start with the end in mind, both with your programming, but also with your data collection?
Definitely. So obviously our goal is to make sure that our students are prepared for life after high school, whatever that looks like, whether it's 2-year, 4-year college, going right into the workforce, military, you name it. We want them to be prepared. And so we drafted pathways for students that identify specific milestones they should be hitting each of their high school years so that they are prepared for whatever post-high school looks like. So we've mapped out that plan so that they're working toward it. Additionally, because of our partnership with the Squash and Education Alliance, we're able to provide post-secondary scholarships to students who do decide to go into college, as well as some funding opportunities, because as a college student, you don't have very much money for interview clothes or snacks or things of that nature. So we do get funds both for their schooling as well as for their personal use, because sometimes you just need a little bit more support in making ends meet. And so with our high school and post-secondary students, we really try to make those touch points to make sure that they're college and career ready, and making sure that we're checking in with them to see what their needs are, and then doing our best to help meet that need. With our middle schoolers, we have an emphasis on exploration, so they're learning more about themselves and the world around them. And then with our elementary students, we're really focused on those life skills development, socio-emotional learning. And so from the backwards design, we have those key components baked into each grade band, so to speak, of our programming, with appropriate dosage amounts identified as well. So perhaps our elementary students don't need as much exposure to college and career readiness because that's not as relevant to them. And so we try to be as intentional as possible with the amount of exposure each student is getting in academics, athletics, enrichment, and college and career readiness, so that the program is still very relevant and personalized to them, so that we can provide that support.
That's fantastic, and it really builds off of each level, each grade band, as you mentioned, with that end goal in mind of them being successful at the end of or not at the end, but as they launch at the end of their schooling. Can you talk some about how you're tracking student data, and what are you measuring? How are you actually collecting data?
Yes, so we have an academic platform that we use called Edmentum that we were able to receive via grant funding. Okay. And so that helps us track our students and how they're performing from an academic perspective. We use it for our elementary through middle school students. And then our high school students, they use a different platform called Study Island. And with that, we've been able to see and witness an increase in GPAs this year by 54%. And so we keep track of how they're performing in ELA and math, which we've also seen gains in this year of over 40%. And of course, we like to see those gains, and then we anticipate those dips, because in the dips, that's where students are learning, so that we can be aware of where their struggle areas are, the attention points are, so we can provide that individualized tutoring, that one-on-one support, so that students can really master whatever they're struggling with. And so we capture all that information in Edmentum, and we load it up into our very sophisticated Salesforce app that we use, where we house all of our data. And it's very informative because, again, we're able to see a very broad snapshot from where they start with us in elementary school up until high school. And so it gives us really great data for how we are performing as a team, and information we can also share with our partner schools regarding academic performance. And so that has been a real game changer for us from an academic standpoint, and as well as when we're thinking about all the other records that we keep track of from a grant and reporting perspective. We're able to utilize that Salesforce platform to do a lot of calculations for us. Lauren mentioned previously about our previous Rachel, who was our previous operations director. She used to do our attendance rates by hand. And I used to be so amazed by that. And she had spreadsheets and sheets after sheets. Goodness. But luckily with Salesforce, we're able to just have the computer do it. And that has been helpful when we're thinking about the attendance rate and the t-shirt sizes and all the other numbers that we are responsible for to make sure that we have a high quality program.
Well, you start somewhere though, right? Just
Yes.
start. Just start.
Lots of Excel sheets.
Yeah, yes. tell us a little bit too about how you're assessing what happens in the classroom in terms of the lesson planning, the effectiveness of the activities in the classroom.
Definitely.
you're
So we
tracking that.
use the out-of-school instrument as well to assess what's happening in the classrooms. Each week, our staff submits a 6-week unit planner, which identifies their plans. And they include the core programming areas as well as any academic standards, any core athletic measurements that they're looking for in students. And so that's really the big plan for where we hope to accomplish in each 6 weeks that we work with students, because we break down our program into 6-week increments just so that it's more manageable for the students as well as for the staff from a planning perspective. And then from there, we're able to really go into classrooms and see if what we plan to happen actually is happening, and where we have to pivot and where we may need to rethink some things, because lessons look great on paper, but once you get in the classroom, sometimes you just have to monitor and adjust. And so we do assess our teams and ourselves to see how well we're doing, what our strengths are from an academic as well as an athletic perspective, and then from enrichment perspective as well. And then we use that information to inform our trainings. What professional development do we need? What more learning can we include here regarding STEM or regarding our squash partnership, where we have our coaches maybe attend a training camp. And so we use all that data to inform what we should do next, so that we can continue to make sure that our programs are high quality and engaging for students.
That's really fantastic. Wow. Okay, I have one more data question, and this is the one where I mentioned it would get scary, because sometimes data is scary, right? We don't all love data. We prefer sometimes those feel-good stories. But this is the WhatWorksSC award. So data is really important, because we need to measure what is actually working. So do you all have any suggestions for organizations here who might be a little bit intimidated by data collection? How can they transform those feel-good stories, those heart stories, into numbers that really demonstrate their success? Whoever.
I mean,
You're
you,
all
you start somewhere. So the out-of-school time instrument is free of charge. It was something easy that we're able to put together. You train 2 individuals. You're going in, you're rating the different lessons. You're sitting in for 15 minutes, and you're looking at validating through an 80% agreement as far as how that classroom is operating. And so that was really how we started originally. And then academically, we noticed prior to COVID that grades weren't really reflective of that students being college and career ready, so we pivoted to working with ad minimum. I think you just have to start somewhere. Even student surveys, parent surveys really give you that foundation of like, what else do we need to develop? What else do we need to explore? But a lot of exploring we have had. So we have tried a lot of things that don't work. We have implemented things that we've had to tweak. So it's just starting from where the students and families are. It's understanding that individual support that students need, and how to expand out from that to support them. And that's how we've gotten to this point. Like Stacia said, it has not always been Salesforce. It has been Excel sheets. It's been focus groups. It's been the kitchen table conversations. And having that feedback has really guided our direction.
And being open to feedback and receptive and asking for it to know what's not working so that you can be better, and not being afraid of what you might find in that data or from those conversations, and really taking it and using it in a constructive way will take the program a very long way as well.
That's great. Yeah, I think even in our planning calls, you talked about the vulnerability that comes with evaluation, that you have to be willing to say, we may not be doing everything right yet. We may not be doing everything that we set out to do, but we're open to learning about that and open to pivoting and making plans based on that. And I think that's a really some really great advice for folks who might need to start more data collection. Is start somewhere and don't be afraid to be vulnerable and to look within.
I think everybody in this room, the kids are the center of what we do.
Yes.
They're that guiding star, and that's how you invest, that's how you improve. And if you don't feel like you have to improve, you might need to reassess.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can set our own egos aside, right?
Yeah,
As long as we're
absolutely.
putting the kids first,
Yes.
is really key. Well, we know that there's a continued need, a growing need for young people to have the opportunities that they receive in programs like Kids on Point. But there also are a lot of challenges currently facing funding and support for these types of programs. So, Lauren, what are some policy changes that you hope to see in the future to ensure that South Carolina is prepared to support and expand after school and summer learning?
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the struggles with 21st century funding and other funding streams that support after school and summer. I would just encourage legislators to know this goes across party lines. This is important for our workforce. This is how our families stay active. This is how our students are not at home during those critical hours from 3 to 6, or in our case, 3 to 7. Also in the summer, that they're engaged, they're not just sitting and behind a screen, that we are actually filling those gaps. And so I'd love to see, I mean, we've had partners here, the South Carolina After School Alliance, really coming together, not working in silos, because there's none of us that do everything. Like, we cannot provide nutrition for the students. We work with people to do that. So we have to get out of our silos. We have to put egos aside and really come together to be able to serve more students and families.
Great, thank you. Well, we are at a spot now where I'm going to rest my voice and turn the questions over to you all. We do have a couple of Riley Institute folks in the audience with microphones in the back. So if you have a question for our panel, we would love for you to just raise your hand. If you'll also tell us your name and where you work, or what your connection is to public education in South Carolina, if you have a question for our team. They've done a phenomenal job explaining everything.
Hi, I am Mary Hannah Studemeyer. I'm an assistant principal at North Charleston High School. And I was just curious, yay Charleston, love it. But just curious how you recruit students, and if students are interested, how they can become a part.
Yeah, so for recruitment, we like to go out to a lot of community events when we're invited and when we hear about them. We rely on word of mouth sometimes. Sometimes a parent will tell another parent who tells another. We'll reach out to schools that we're hoping to partner with, whether they're on our bus route or they're nearby, so we know we can pick them up. Whether it's a certain grade level of student that we know we need to fill, gaps there and they're nearby. So primarily those three avenues, like word of mouth, we're going out in the community to events, and we're reaching out to those schools directly.
A large expansion effort is happening in North Charleston, so we'll be coming to chat with you very soon.
Sounds like those partnerships and collaborations are in the room for sure.
Oh, hi, I have the mic. I thought she was walking over to someone else, so I was trying to be deferential. I'm Naomi Lett. I'm the CEO of the Technical College System Foundation. I was wondering if you guys view your program. I'm thinking about the teachers who work with the kids, and A, how you select them, and B, do you think about your program as a potential learning ground for future teachers? Is this a place where, as we look at potential teachers who come through our technical college system where they have opportunity to work in the field, I'm curious how you guys select your teachers, and if you've ever considered the possibility of sort of teachers on the pathway becoming part of the larger model of your program.
Great question. So we select our teachers similar to how we select our students. So any school we have an established partnership with them we reach out to them to let them know, hey, we're hiring for the summer. And so we hire seasoned teachers, typically who've been in the classroom 3 or more years, to come work with us. In addition to that partnership that we have with our public schools, we have a very unique partnership with the Call Me Mr. program at Clemson, which gives us access to pre-service teachers who come work as program counselors during our summer program. And so we like to think of ourselves as a place where all professionals can learn and grow regardless of experience, and we like to be that place where they can try new activities that they've been wanting to do for so long but have whatever constraints during the regular school day. And so we do think of ourselves as an environment where veteran teachers as well as pre-service teachers can come, learn, and grow together. And so we do like to have those partnerships in place to make sure that professionals are coming in and working with our students and really getting a glimpse of what it means to be an after-school professional.
And I do think there's a bit of a movement across the after-school field in the country, really, to set up these pipelines by partnering teacher educators or teacher educator programs in after-school programs, really setting up some pipelines like that. I think is a wonderful idea and something that's in the works across the state and across the country. So excellent question and something we'd love to dive into more. I know Zelda with the South Carolina After School Alliance it would probably love to connect with you if you aren't already.
Hello, Craig King, Director of Teacher Leadership, Palmetto State Teachers Association, and Call Me Mr. Program at Columbia College. You talked a lot about the 15-year outcome and following your students. Any thoughts or plans on engaging alumni of your program to come back to actually participate in your program? Because we all know the best experience is to have someone who has lived that experience, right? And so any thoughts on how you look to engage alumni of the program back into what you're doing now? Thank you.
We have hired several alumni to come back to the program. They're coming back and volunteering at this point. We have meet and greets when they're back in town over the holidays. So we do engage them. They're donating back to the program. And so we do make sure that they're embedded in, that they're having those conversations with our current students about their experience. And they also help us guide in how we develop programs, what worked for them, what didn't, what resources can we put in place from that post-secondary standpoint, whether they're moving into college or career. And that has helped us improve on that level. It really helped us design and look at more depth into the high school pathways program. We partner with a group called College Sage that provides our college and career counseling. And so they do come back and offer those insights. But I mean, very good point of how critical they are.
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Danielle, and I'm from Cohort 2.
Scales in the house.
I have a question about HR type of responsibilities, because you have a pathway for, and by the way, great job on 90% retention, because it's hard nowadays with new generations and working with multi-generational staff. How do you deal with the day-to-day, various personalities to keep your people?
They're fighting over who gets to answer this question.
This is always a work in progress. I mean, right now we're in a big expansion mode, and we have a smaller staff. There's 9 full-time staff members. We have a lot of volunteers, and so it's that direct engagement. They are doing a great job supporting the staff. We're making sure that we're continuing the culture of how the organization started. Also creating leadership pipelines for the staff. We want them to grow. We want them to expand. One thing that we are very proactive in doing that our board signed on for is that we give each staff member a $1,000 professional development fund each year. And so we talk as we're goal setting for the year, how do you want to develop professionally and personally? What would you like to participate in? Stacia with the SCALE program. Dylan also participated in a leadership program. I've done several things throughout my tenure with the organization as well. We want our staff to be exposed to new things. We want them to grow in the organization. We want them to stay. For our summer staffing, we do give financial increases every year that they come back, because it's expensive to live. I mean, people have bills, they have responsibilities. We want to make sure that they feel valued. We provide all of their supplies during the summer, and it takes a lot of fundraising to do that, but it's something that we really believe in. we want people to feel supported, but it's hard. It really is hard. I would say that the consistency that Stacia's been able to develop in the summer, along with the consistency we have, mean a lot to students, and it's something that we are very dedicated to making sure that we're investing in.
Great. Thank you all for such great audience questions. I have one final question for our panelists, and one of my very favorite things about working at the Riley Institute at Furman is that we really are in a position to uplift and to celebrate so many positive things that are happening in public education, and this event is really all about that. So we get to celebrate, we get to talk about hopes and dreams, and I would love to hear just one or two sentences from each of you about what your hopes and dreams are for the future of after school and summer learning, and for the future of Kids on Point specifically.
Kicking it off?
Sure.
Okay. But I mean, for us at Kids on Point, we are certainly looking at statewide expansion efforts. But as a whole, I just want to see more families and students having access to our programs. I mean, everyone in this room is doing amazing things for the kids, and we all have to work together to ensure that they're getting those opportunities, because every single child deserves it. Every single student has 100% potential to be whatever they want to be. And it's really our job to take the adult dynamics out and support the kids and families in that way. And so that's my hope for South Carolina. I'd really love for us to, be top 10, top 5 in education, and I would love for the need of Kids on Point to no longer exist in 20 years. So that's my aspiration.
I would say I have a similar aspiration, that we are collaborating in a greater measure, pulling in the same direction to support positive outcomes for our students so that they're able to dream a bit bigger and able to accomplish what it is they have in their hearts to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, similar, all about expansion, being able to serve as many students as possible, and really having that pipeline, whether it's through the partnerships with the schools, where we know once we get a cohort of students going out, we have a freshman coming in, and that, we talked a lot about data, but we can quantify the impact. So when parents come to this, is, hey, we guarantee that this is what will happen if your student sticks with us for these 15 years. And then from a funding perspective, just people understanding how important OSC programs are. I think at times we could be viewed as like, oh, it's just some place for them to go. It is so much more than that, and it can be even more when it's supported. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. I know that we are all inspired and appreciative of the efforts that you all are creating with this strong foundation, with the intentional planning, with the vulnerable reflection, and really always putting your kids first. So thank you all so much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and to our panelists, thank you so much. I am so honored to recognize the great work of Kids on Point. Lauren, Stacia, Dylan, thank you for the innovative work you're doing to provide critical services to students in our state. It is my great pleasure to present the 2026 Dick and Tunky Riley WhatWorksSC Award to Kids on Point. We can get them in after. Okay. Yeah. We'll get it later. Yeah.
It is always an inspirational experience to listen to the stories of what these programs are doing. Today has not been an exception. This is a fantastic work, and I really appreciate it. Let's give one more round of applause to our winning program, Kids on Point, and our finalists, Darlington County and School District Office of Career Readiness and Richland County School District Summer Store. These programs are making such an important impact for the students in the schools, and we would love for you all to spread the word about these programs, driving the public education outcomes that we're looking for in our state to become the number 10 or number 5 or number 1 in educational outcomes. So lift up these programs, and next year feel free to reach out with nominees of other programs that we would like to lift up. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.